It was a beautiful afternoon when Jack decided to go for a hike in the nearby mountains. The sky was clear, and the air was crisp, filled with the smell of pine trees and fresh earth. Jack had always loved the mountains. There was something calming about being surrounded by nature, away from the noise and pressure of the city. He had no particular destination in mind, just the need to escape from the stress of daily life. As he walked deeper into the woods, the sound of birds chirping filled the air. The trail was a little overgrown, and Jack had to push aside some branches as he made his way through. The path seemed to grow quieter with each step, the hustle of the world far behind him now. After about an hour of walking, Jack stumbled upon a strange sight. Half buried in the dirt was a small, old-fashioned lamp. At first, he thought it was just a piece of old trash someone had left behind, but as he bent down to take a closer look, he noticed the intricate designs carved into the surface. It was no ordinary lamp. It was beautiful, though slightly worn, as if it had been sitting there for centuries, untouched by time. Jack's curiosity got the better of him. Without really thinking, he picked up the lamp and began rubbing it. He thought it was funny, just something to do. Who knew what it had been through, or who might have owned it? He could imagine the lamp being a part of some long-forgotten treasure chest, lost in the woods by an adventurer long ago. The moment his fingers touched the lamp, something unexpected happened. A sudden gust of wind stirred around him, and a flash of bright light burst from the opening of the lamp, blinding him for a split second. Jack stumbled backward, his heart racing in confusion and surprise. Was this some kind of trick? Maybe there was a hidden light inside, or a mechanism to make the lamp glow. But then, as the light slowly faded, Jack saw her. Standing before him, as if she had appeared out of thin air, was a woman. No, a being, who was unlike anything he had ever seen. She was beautiful, but not in the way he was used to. She had an otherworldly glow about her, with shimmering golden skin that seemed to reflect the sunlight in strange, captivating patterns. Her eyes were an intense shade of green, like deep forests, and they seemed to pierce right through him. She was dressed in a flowing outfit made of what looked like iridescent fabric, and her hair, long and black as midnight, seemed to move gently as though caught in an unseen breeze. For a moment, Jack just stared at her, too stunned to speak. He had read about genies and magical beings in books and seen them in movies, but he never thought he'd encounter one in real life. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. Was this some kind of illusion? Was he dreaming? The woman smiled, her lips curving into a warm, knowing grin. "I am Layla, the Genie of the lamp," she said, her voice soft, but filled with a strange, almost musical quality. "You have freed me, and for that I am grateful. I shall grant you 3 wishes, as is the rule." Jack blinked, still processing her words. You're a genie." His voice came out shaky, his mind still in disbelief. "Yes, a genie," Layla replied. "And you, my dear friend, are the one who has released me from my prison. For centuries, I have been trapped within this lamp, waiting for someone to come along and set me free." Jack stared at her, still unsure whether to believe what was happening. He had heard stories about genies granting wishes, but it all seemed too surreal. He looked down at the lamp in his hand, and then back at Layla. "Wait, 3 wishes? Like any wishes?" "Yes," Layla said, her smile widening. "You may wish for anything your heart desires. But be warned, not all wishes are as simple as they seem. There are consequences to every choice." Jack's heart was racing now. He was standing in front of a real, magical being, a genie. He could ask for anything. Wealth, fame, power, whatever he wanted. The possibilities seemed endless. "Anything?" he asked again, trying to make sure he heard her correctly. "Anything," she confirmed, her eyes twinkling mischievously. "But choose wisely. The universe has a way of balancing things out." Jack felt a surge of excitement, followed by a wave of uncertainty. This was the kind of thing people dream about. How many times had he wished for something extraordinary, something that would change his life forever? Now he had the chance to make that happen. But then a thought crossed his mind. What did he really want? Was there something deeper he desired? Something more meaningful than just the obvious choices? Layla seemed to sense his hesitation. She tilted her head slightly, studying him. You do not need to rush, Jack. Think carefully. A wish is a powerful thing. It can change your life in ways you cannot even imagine. Jack sat down on a nearby rock, trying to clear his mind. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. His mind raced through all the things he could wish for. The first thing that came to mind was money. He had always struggled financially, always worried about bills and his future. Maybe wealth was the answer to all his problems. But then he thought about the pressure that came with money, living up to expectations, constantly worrying about losing it. It didn't feel as appealing as it once did. He thought about fame, about being admired by everyone, his name in lights. That too seemed tempting, but the more he considered it, the less satisfying it seemed. Fame brought its own burdens, its own traps. Then there was power. Power to control his life, his future, maybe even the world. But deep down, Jack knew that power, without the right intentions, could be dangerous. He didn't want to hurt anyone or cause chaos. Power for its own sake felt empty. And that's when it hit him. He wasn't looking for anything material. He wasn't looking for money or fame or power. What he really wanted was peace. He wanted to be free from the constant stress, the worries that gnawed at him every day. Fear had always controlled him, held him back from chasing his dreams and living a life without anxiety. He wished for the strength to be free of that fear. Jack stood up slowly and turned to Layla. I know what I want, he said quietly. Layla raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What is it then? I wish to be free of fear, Jack said, his voice steady. I don't want to be afraid anymore. Not of my future, not of failing, not of what others think of me. I want to live my life without fear holding me back. Layla stared at him, her eyes wide in surprise. She wasn't sure she had ever granted a wish like this before. People usually asked for things that could be touched or seen. Gold, fame, power. But freedom from fear, that was something much deeper. For a long moment, Layla remained silent. She studied Jack carefully, as if weighing the gravity of his request. She had granted wishes for centuries, but this was different. This was a wish for inner peace, for something that couldn't be measured in gold or treasures. Finally, she spoke, her voice softer now. You are sure about this? Jack nodded. Yes. I'm tired of being afraid. Layla smiled, her expression filled with respect. Very well. Your wish is granted. A soft, glowing light surrounded Jack, warm and calming. It wasn't like the flash of magic he had seen when she appeared, but a gentle warmth that seemed to fill his entire being. He felt lighter, as if a weight he didn't even know he was carrying had been lifted. For the first time in a long time, Jack felt truly at peace. The light that surrounded Jack faded slowly, like a gentle sunrise creeping over a dark horizon. For a moment, everything was still, too still. He blinked a few times, taking in the peacefulness that had suddenly washed over him. It felt like a weight had been lifted off his chest, but it wasn't the kind of relief you might feel after a long, exhausting day. No, this was something deeper. It was as if the fear he had carried with him for years had evaporated into nothingness. He looked around, his eyes searching the quiet forest, but nothing seemed to have changed. The trees were still the same. The sunlight still dappled the forest floor, and the sound of birds was still in the air. Yet everything felt different, brighter, more alive. Jack felt lighter, like a burden had been taken off him that he hadn't even realized was there. As he turned to face Layla, the genie still stood before him, her eyes locked on him with an expression he couldn't quite read. She looked impressed, but there was something more to her gaze, something like a deep understanding of the gravity of what had just happened. She had seen countless wishes granted over the centuries. But this one, this wish for freedom from fear, was unlike anything she had ever experienced. "You seem at peace," Layla said softly, her voice almost as if she were speaking to herself. "It's rare for a human to wish for something so internal. Most of the time, they ask for things that can be touched and seen. Gold, power, fame." Jack shrugged, a little embarrassed by the intensity of his own feelings. "I guess I'm just tired of living in fear. You know, like the constant anxiety and stress that always seems to follow me around. It's hard to focus on what matters when you're scared all the time." Layla tilted her head, as if trying to understand Jack more deeply. "Humans fear many things," she said. "Failure, rejection, the unknown. But your wish, it is not for something that can be touched. It is a wish for peace of mind, for freedom within yourself." Jack nodded slowly. "Exactly. It's not something anyone can give me, except me. But I needed a little help, I guess." The genie studied him for a moment, her green eyes glowing softly. "You have done something that few others would even think to ask for. You've made a wish that isn't about changing your circumstances. It's about changing yourself." Jack felt a slight chill run down his spine. Her words made him think more deeply about the wish he had made. Was he really ready to live without fear? Was he prepared to let go of all the things that had once held him back? He had always believed that fear was something to be overcome, something that made him stronger. But now, it felt different. It felt like he could actually breathe for the first time in years. For a long moment, Layla said nothing. Her gaze softened, and Jack saw the faintest hint of a smile playing at the corners of her lips. She was proud of him, he realized. Proud of the choice he had made. Maybe, for the first time in her centuries of granting wishes, she was seeing something truly remarkable in a human. Finally, Jack spoke again. "So, now what? I mean, I feel different, but what does this mean? Did I really wish for something that powerful?" Layla nodded. "You have made a wish that will forever change the course of your life, Jack. The fear that once controlled you is no longer a part of you. You can now live freely, without that heavy weight hanging over you." Jack looked around again, this time with a renewed sense of clarity. He could see the world in a way he hadn't before. The trees, the sky, even the dirt beneath his feet. It all seemed more vibrant, more real. He felt more connected to everything around him, as if the fear had blocked him from truly experiencing life. It was hard to explain, but it was like a fog had lifted, allowing him to see everything clearly. "Wow," Jack breathed. "This is incredible." Layla's smile grew. "It is indeed. But remember, Jack, your journey does not end here. You still have 2 more wishes to make." Jack paused at the reminder. He had nearly forgotten about the other 2 wishes. The idea of asking for more things was tempting, but now, with the fear gone, he felt like he could think more clearly about what he truly wanted. Was it really about wealth or power? Was it about changing his life with another wish? He thought about his second wish, but before he could voice it, Layla spoke again, sensing his inner turmoil. "You are uncertain, aren't you?" she asked, her voice calm but filled with insight. Jack sighed. "Yeah, I feel like I should want more, like I should wish for something that would really change my life. But now that I've been freed from fear, I don't know what else I need." Layla nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. "Sometimes, the things we think we need aren't what will truly bring us happiness. You've already chosen something important, a wish for peace within yourself. That is something most people would never even consider." Jack was silent for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. He had lived so long chasing after external things. Money, success, recognition. He thought those things would make him happy. But now that he had felt what it was like to be free of fear, he realized that true happiness wasn't something that could be bought or achieved. It came from within. It was about feeling good in your own skin, knowing that no matter what the world threw at you, you could handle it. Layla seemed to sense his growing understanding. Perhaps, Jack, this is the true power of your wish. You've seen past the superficial desires and realized that true contentment comes from within. Jack smiled at her words, feeling a quiet sense of gratitude. Yeah, I think you're right. There was a pause between them, and Layla seemed to consider something carefully. You know, Jack, I have granted countless wishes over the centuries, and I've seen all kinds of people. People who wish for power, who wish to change their past, who wish to be immortal. But your wish for freedom from fear, shows a kind of wisdom that is rare. Jack blushed slightly, unsure of how to respond. I just wanted to be able to live without worrying all the time, you know. To not be afraid of making mistakes or messing up. I didn't think it would be this life-changing. Layla smiled warmly, the kind of smile that made Jack feel like maybe he had done something truly special. It's not easy to face your fears. Most people spend their entire lives running from them or trying to control them. But you've chosen to release them. And that takes more courage than you might realize. Jack didn't know what to say to that. Part of him still felt like he was living in a dream. Just a few hours ago, he had been lost in his own anxiety and doubts. Now, he felt like a different person. He felt free. But Layla, Jack began, his voice a little unsure. What happens now? Will I always feel this way? Will the fear just never come back? Layla's expression softened, and she stepped closer to him. Fear will always exist in the world, Jack. It's a part of life. But now that you have chosen to be free of it, it will no longer control you. You will still face challenges, but you will face them with strength and clarity, not with the weight of fear holding you back. Jack nodded slowly, feeling a sense of reassurance. Maybe he wouldn't be completely fearless every moment of his life, but he had learned something important. He had learned that it was okay to feel fear. It was how you responded to it that mattered. And now, he felt ready to face whatever came his way. He turned to Layla, his heart full of gratitude. Thank you. I didn't realize how much this wish would change my life. Layla's eyes sparkled with a hint of pride. It was your wish, Jack. You made the choice to free yourself. You have the power to shape your future, and I believe you will do so wisely. As the quiet moment between Jack and Layla stretched on, the forest around them seemed to grow even more still. It was as though time itself had slowed, allowing both of them to reflect on what had just occurred. Jack could still feel the warmth of the light that had surrounded him, the sense of peace that had washed over him when he made his wish. The fear that once controlled him was gone, replaced by a new sense of clarity. Jack felt different, lighter, freer. But there was still something about the situation that made him feel a bit out of place. He had just made a wish to rid himself of fear, and while that wish had been granted, he couldn't help but wonder what Layla was thinking. She had seen countless people make wishes, but his request had been unusual. Most people asked for things like wealth, power, or beauty. Jack had asked for something that went beyond the material world. He had asked for inner peace. Jack glanced over at Layla, who stood in the same spot, her arms gently folded. Her presence was serene and confident, but there was something about her gaze, something that suggested she was deep in thought. For the first time, Jack noticed the weight of experience in her eyes. She wasn't just a Genie who granted wishes. She was someone who had lived through countless centuries and witnessed the stories of countless humans. She had seen so much, and Jack suddenly felt as though she might understand more about the world than he ever could. Layla's gaze slowly shifted from the forest floor to meet his. There was a slight smile on her lips, but it was a smile tinged with something else, a quiet reflection that made Jack wonder if she had something important to share. "Do you ever wonder, Jack," Layla began, her voice soft and contemplative, "what it means to truly be free?" Jack blinked in surprise. "I think I know what it feels like now," he said slowly. I feel like I can breathe. For the first time in years, I'm not constantly worried about what's going to happen next or whether I'll fail. It's a kind of freedom I never thought was possible. Layla nodded, her eyes distant. Yes, you've experienced a taste of it. But there's more to freedom than just the absence of fear. True freedom is a state of mind, Jack. It is the ability to live without being bound by your past, without being controlled by external expectations or the opinions of others. It is the ability to choose your path, regardless of the consequences. Jack looked at her, puzzled. But that sounds like what I've done, right? I made a wish to be free of fear. Isn't that the same thing? Layla shook her head gently. Not exactly. What you've wished for is the freedom to live without the shackles of fear, but there are other forces that can hold you back in life. Fear is just one of them. There are also desires for things that may not truly bring happiness or even control you. Power, wealth, status, they are all illusions of freedom, Jack. They promise you happiness but often come with their own chains. Jack nodded, trying to process her words. They made sense in a way, but it was still hard for him to fully understand. He had spent so much of his life worrying about what he didn't have, and now, after making his wish, he felt like he had everything he needed. He wasn't afraid anymore, and for him, that was enough. Do you ever wish for freedom, Layla? Jack asked, suddenly curious about the genie's own thoughts. I mean, you've been trapped in that lamp for centuries. You've seen so many people come and go. Don't you ever wish you could be free from it all? Layla's smile faltered for just a moment, and for the first time, Jack saw a flicker of something other than her usual calm demeanor. It was subtle, but he could tell that his question had struck a chord with her. She took a deep breath, her gaze softening as she considered how to respond. You know, Jack, she began slowly, when I was first bound to the lamp, I was just like any other being. I had my own desires, my own dreams. I believed in freedom, just like you. But after so many years of granting wishes for others, I came to realize something important. Freedom isn't always about doing what you want or getting everything you wish for. Sometimes, true freedom comes from understanding the responsibilities that come with power and choice. Jack raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Responsibilities. You mean like how I have to be careful with the wishes I make? Exactly, Layla replied. When I grant wishes, I must always remember that every choice has consequences. Every wish, no matter how well-intentioned, can change the course of someone's life in ways they cannot foresee. I have watched countless people make wishes, some of them wise, some of them foolish. But in the end, it's always the choices they make after their wishes are granted that define them. They are free to choose their paths, but they must live with the results of those choices. Jack felt a chill run through him at her words. So, you're saying that even though I've made my wish for peace, I could still face challenges? That it might not be as simple as just feeling free all the time? Layla's eyes sparkled with a knowing wisdom. Indeed, freedom is not an endpoint. It is a journey. You may feel free from fear now, but life will continue to present you with challenges. How you respond to those challenges, and how you choose to move forward, will define the true extent of your freedom. The real test, Jack, is not in the absence of fear, but in how you live your life after it's gone. What choices will you make? Jack was silent for a long time, absorbing her words. He hadn't considered the deeper implications of his wish. He had thought that by freeing himself from fear, everything would simply fall into place. But now he realized that freedom wasn't a one-time thing. It was an ongoing process. It was about making choices with intention and living with the consequences. Layla's gaze softened as she saw Jack's contemplation. I've seen many people, Jack. I've granted wishes for those who sought power, others who sought love, and some who simply wanted to escape their reality. But what I've learned over the years is this. True freedom comes when you are able to live authentically, without hiding behind fear or external pressures. It's when you can stand tall and say, I am who I am, and I choose this path, no matter where it leads. Jack let out a slow breath. He understood now. He had asked for freedom from fear, and he had received it, But the journey wasn't over. It had only just begun. He was free in a way he had never been before. But with that freedom came the responsibility to make choices that aligned with who he truly was. No longer bound by fear, he was free to live as his authentic self. And that perhaps was the most powerful form of freedom. "Thank you, Layla," Jack said quietly, his voice filled with gratitude. "I think I understand now. I've got to live this freedom fully, not just wait for things to magically get better. It's up to me to make the most of it." Layla's smile returned, a genuine and warm smile that made Jack feel like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. "You're welcome, Jack. You've taken the first step on a journey that many never even start. Remember, though, the journey is yours to make. It's not about avoiding challenges, but how you rise to meet them. That is where the real freedom lies." Jack nodded, feeling a quiet sense of determination settle within him. He didn't know what the future would hold, but for the first time in his life, he felt like he was ready to face it. He was ready to live authentically, to make choices that would reflect the person he truly wanted to be. As he looked at Layla one last time, he realized that this was more than just a wish granted. It was the beginning of a new chapter in his life, a chapter where fear no longer had a hold on him. And so, with a deep sense of peace in his heart, Jack took a step forward, ready to continue on his journey, whatever it might bring. The sun was beginning to dip lower in the sky, casting a soft, golden light through the forest. Jack stood in the same spot, feeling the light breeze on his face, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. Layla, the Genie, stood just a few paces away from him, her posture relaxed but ever watchful. The first wish had changed everything. Jack felt like a new person, a version of himself who wasn't bogged down by fear. But now, the weight of the second wish hung heavily on his shoulders. The air between them felt charged with expectation. Jack had made his first wish for freedom from fear, and it had been granted. Now, the Genie stood before him, ready to grant him two more wishes. The possibilities were endless, and Jack wasn't sure where to begin. He glanced at Layla, who had been silent since the first wish was granted. Her eyes gleamed with an ancient wisdom, as if she knew something he didn't. Jack had never imagined that a genie could have such a thoughtful, almost human side. He had always imagined that genies were simply powerful beings who granted wishes with little thought. But Layla was different. She seemed to understand the complexities of life in a way he couldn't quite grasp. Jack cleared his throat, feeling the weight of her gaze upon him. "I've been thinking about the second wish. I'm not sure what to ask for," he admitted. The uncertainty in his voice was clear. The first wish had come naturally to him, but now he wasn't sure what he truly wanted. Layla watched him with calm patience. It's normal to feel uncertain. The first wish often unlocks a path, but the second one is where things get complicated. Most people have an idea of what they want, but they rarely stop to consider the consequences. Jack nodded, his mind racing. The idea of making another wish seemed simple enough at first, but now that he was free from fear, he realized that making another wish wasn't just about asking for something. He had to think carefully about how it would affect his future. What did he really need? What could he ask for that would help him live the kind of life he wanted? He shifted his weight, looking around at the forest that seemed so much more vibrant now, the colors richer, the sounds sharper. He felt alive in a way he never had before. The freedom from fear had given him a sense of clarity, but it had also left him with a deeper question. What was his true purpose now? What was worth pursuing in a life that had no limitations? For the first time, he wondered whether he had been chasing the wrong things all along. In the past, his wishes and desires had always been about fixing problems, solving his anxiety, earning enough money, gaining the approval of others. But now that the fog of fear had cleared, he realized that his goals had never really been his own. They had been shaped by the expectations of society, by what others thought was important, rather than what he truly wanted for himself. Jack turned to Layla. "I know I'm free from fear now, but what if I don't know what I want anymore? What if I'd spent so much time running from things that I don't even know what would make me happy? Layla's smile was gentle but knowing. It's common for people to lose sight of what they truly desire when they've spent so long under the weight of fear or external pressures. But now that you are free, you can choose again. The beauty of freedom is that you can redefine what happiness means for you. Jack thought about her words. So, I can make a wish for anything, right? It doesn't have to be something big or grand or even for myself. Exactly, Layla replied, her voice filled with understanding. Wishes don't always have to be about changing the world or gaining power. Sometimes, the most meaningful wishes are the ones that bring about personal growth or help others. Jack was silent for a moment, his mind beginning to settle into a more focused place. He realized that his second wish didn't have to be about wealth or fame. It didn't have to be about changing his life in a dramatic way. He had already changed by freeing himself from fear. Now, the next step was to shape his future, not through the pursuit of external goals, but through inner growth and the ways he could impact the world around him. His gaze shifted to the horizon, where the last rays of sunlight danced across the treetops. A thought began to form in his mind, something he had never considered before, something that felt both right and difficult at the same time. What if? What if I wish for the ability to help others? Jack asked quietly, his voice filled with uncertainty. Not just by giving them things, but by helping them grow, like I have. I want to be someone who can inspire others to be free from their own fears and limitations. I want to make a difference in the world, not by changing things, but by changing how people see themselves. Layla's eyes widened slightly in surprise, but then a deep sense of admiration filled her gaze. She regarded him for a long moment before speaking. "That is an admirable wish, Jack," she said. "But you must understand that wishing for the ability to help others is not the same as directly changing their lives. You cannot force others to change. They must choose for themselves. What you are asking for is the power to inspire, to lead by example. And that is a powerful gift, but it comes with great responsibility." Jack's heart raced as he absorbed Layla's words. This wasn't a wish to change the world directly. It wasn't a wish for riches or fame or power. It was a wish to empower others, to help them see that they too could be free from fear. But Layla was right. He couldn't control others' choices. He could only show them a path, and it would be up to them to walk it. Still, something deep inside him felt right about this wish. He had been given the gift of freedom from fear, and now he wanted to share that gift with others, not by giving them answers, but by showing them that they too could find their own answers. Jack looked at Layla, determination in his eyes. "I want to wish for the ability to help others overcome their fears, to guide them towards a better version of themselves. I don't want to give them everything. I just want to show them that they have the power to change their own lives." Layla's smile was full of warmth and approval. "That is a wish with a deep and meaningful purpose, Jack. It is not about what you can do for others, but what you can inspire them to do for themselves." Jack took a deep breath, his heart filled with a sense of purpose. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he was beginning to understand that the true power of a wish wasn't in what you received, but in what you could give. "Make your second wish, then," Layla said softly, her voice filled with encouragement. Jack closed his eyes for a moment, reflecting on all that had happened since he first encountered the Genie. He had been given a chance to change, a chance to live without fear. And now he had the opportunity to change the lives of others, to give them the same gift of freedom. It wasn't just about himself anymore. It was about creating a ripple effect, a chain of change that could spread to those around him. With a deep sense of clarity, Jack spoke the words that would shape his future. "I wish for the ability to help others overcome their fears, to guide them toward their own freedom and growth." As soon as the words left his lips, a wave of energy seemed to wash over him, a soft light filling the space around them. Jack felt a rush of warmth and understanding, as if a new power had awakened within him. It wasn't a power to control others, but a power to inspire and guide them. It was the ability to show them that they too could live without fear, if only they chose to. Layla stepped forward, her smile full of pride and approval. Your second wish is granted, Jack. You have chosen a path of wisdom and compassion. Now, the real journey begins. Jack stood there, feeling the weight of the moment. This was it, the start of something new. The first wish had freed him from fear. The second wish had given him the power to help others do the same. Now he just had to live out the lessons he had learned and help others find their own freedom. As the sun set behind them, Jack felt ready to face whatever came next. He wasn't alone anymore. He had the power to make a difference. The world around Jack felt alive in ways it never had before. The rustling of the leaves, the chirping of the birds, and the soft hum of the wind all seemed to be part of a greater rhythm, one that he now felt a deeper connection to. His journey had changed him. He had made 2 wishes, each one more meaningful than the last. And now, with the third and final wish on the horizon, Jack was faced with an overwhelming sense of possibility. He stood at the edge of the clearing, looking out over the vibrant forest. Layla, the Genie who had granted his wishes, stood nearby, her posture calm and composed, as if she had seen this moment play out countless times before. But Jack wasn't like the others who had stood before her. He had come to realize that the magic of wishes was not in the granting itself, but in how they could shape a person's life. He had already made wishes that freed him from fear and gave him the ability to inspire others. But what could he possibly ask for next? The question weighed heavily on him. What do I wish for now? He whispered to himself. The words felt like a riddle he couldn't quite solve. He had already been given the freedom to live without fear, and he had the power to help others do the same. But that didn't feel like enough. There was something else, something deeper, that he hadn't yet touched. Layla, who had been watching him quietly, finally spoke. You have 1 wish left, Jack. It is yours to make, and it is yours to shape. But be careful. The third wish is often the most important, the one that brings everything into focus. It's the wish that ties all the others together. Jack turned to face her, his brow furrowed in thought. But what if I don't know what I want? What if I don't have any more wishes left in me? Layla's eyes softened with understanding. That is the dilemma many face. They are so focused on what they want, they forget to reflect on what they truly need. The third wish should not be for something external. It should not be something that will bring you wealth or power. It should be something that brings you peace, something that completes the journey you have started. Jack took a deep breath. He had spent so much of his life wishing for things outside of himself. He had wished for a life without fear, for the ability to help others, but now it was time to look inward. What did he need to bring everything together? What could complete this journey he had begun? He thought about his life before he met Layla. The constant worry, the constant fear that had held him back. He thought about how, with just 1 wish, he had shed that burden. Then he had asked to help others, to inspire them to break free from their own fears. And now, as he looked back at his own transformation, he realized that there was one thing that had always been missing from his life, the ability to live fully in the present, without looking back at the past or worrying about the future. Layla, Jack said slowly, I think I know what I need. I've been given freedom from fear, and I've been given the ability to help others. But the one thing I've never had is the ability to live in the moment. I've always been caught up in the past or anxious about the future. I want to wish for the ability to fully embrace the present, to experience life for what it is, without dwelling on what has already happened or fearing what's to come. Layla's eyes sparkled with approval. That is a powerful wish, Jack. To live fully in the present is to truly embrace life as it is. It is the key to inner peace. Many people are trapped in the past or the future, and they miss the beauty of the moment right in front of them. Jack nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He had spent so much of his life either regretting things he couldn't change or worrying about things that hadn't even happened yet. He had never allowed himself to simply experience life as it came. Now, with the freedom to live without fear, the next step was to embrace the present, to stop running from life, and to simply be part of it. "There's one more thing I've learned from this journey," Jack continued, his voice more certain now. "I've realized that I can't control everything. The future is uncertain, and the past is gone. All I have is now, this moment. And that's all I really need to focus on. The past won't define me, and neither will the future. Only what I do now matters." Layla smiled warmly. "That is wisdom, Jack. It's not about controlling time or wishing for a different reality. It's about accepting the present for what it is and finding peace in it. You've come a long way." Jack took a deep breath, his heart swelling with a sense of purpose. He wasn't asking for riches or fame. He wasn't asking for anything external. He was asking for the ability to be fully present in his own life, to experience the joy, the pain, the wonder, and the challenges without being distracted by fear or regret. He looked at Layla, his expression serious. "I wish for the ability to live fully in the present, to embrace each moment as it comes, without dwelling on the past or fearing the future." The moment he spoke the words, Jack felt a surge of energy, as though a weight had lifted from his chest. It wasn't a magical light show or a grand display of power. It was something quieter, something more profound. It was a sense of clarity, a new understanding that flooded his mind. He felt a deep peace settle within him, as if the world had slowed down just enough for him to truly appreciate it. Layla nodded, her gaze filled with a deep respect. "Your wish is granted, Jack. You now have the gift of presence. You will experience life fully in every moment, and it will lead you to a deeper understanding of yourself and the world around you." Jack closed his eyes for a moment, allowing the sensation of this new gift to wash over him. He felt connected to everything around him: the trees, the breeze, the birds in the sky. For the first time, he wasn't worried about what might happen next. He wasn't looking over his shoulder at past mistakes or regrets. He was simply here, in this moment, and that was enough. When he opened his eyes, he saw Layla standing there, watching him with a look of quiet satisfaction. "I can feel it," Jack said softly. "I'm here. I'm truly here." Layla smiled. "And that, Jack, is the greatest gift of all." The forest seemed to hum with a new energy, as though everything around him was in perfect harmony. Jack knew that his journey was far from over, but for the first time, he wasn't afraid of the path ahead. He had the power to live in the moment, to experience life without fear or regret. That was all he needed. "I've learned so much from you, Layla," Jack said, his voice filled with gratitude. "Thank you for showing me that the greatest gifts aren't things you can touch or hold. They're the things that live inside you." Layla's smile widened. "The greatest gifts are the ones that help you grow, that help you become who you are meant to be. You've done that, Jack, and now you can help others do the same." Jack looked around at the world before him, feeling the weight of his final wish settle into his heart. He wasn't just free from fear, and he wasn't just able to help others. He was fully present in his own life, living each moment with intention and peace. The future didn't seem so daunting anymore, and the past no longer held him back. He had everything he needed in this moment, and for the first time, Jack truly understood what it meant to be alive. The sun had fully dipped beneath the horizon, leaving behind a soft purple twilight that cast long shadows over the forest. The world seemed suspended in time, as though the very air was holding its breath. Jack stood at the center of the clearing, feeling the cool evening air against his skin. His body was alive with the feeling of the last wish, the sense of peace and freedom he now carried within himself. Layla, standing just a few paces away, had been silent since his third wish had been granted. She seemed almost distant now, as if she were lost in thought. For the first time, Jack noticed that her usual confidence seemed to have softened. There was something more human about her now, a vulnerability that hadn't been there before. The genie had granted him 3 wishes, each one more powerful and transformative than the last. But now, with the final wish made and the process complete, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story, more to Layla's presence than he had ever imagined. She had given him freedom, clarity, and the ability to help others. But in doing so, she had also given him something else, a deeper understanding of what it meant to be human. Jack glanced at her, curiosity filling his thoughts. "Layla," he began carefully, "you've given me so much. Freedom, peace, the ability to live in the moment. I've learned so much from you. But what about you? What happens to you now?" The question hung in the air between them. Layla didn't respond immediately. Instead, she looked out into the forest, her gaze distant and unreadable. It was as though Jack's words had stirred something deep within her, something she had kept hidden for a long time. Jack took a few steps forward, wanting to break the silence, but also feeling a sense of respect for the Genie who had changed his life. "You've been trapped in this cycle of granting wishes for so long, haven't you? Do you ever wonder what it would be like to live a life of your own? To be free?" Layla sighed softly, her expression filled with a kind of melancholy acceptance. "The nature of my existence is tied to the curse that bound me. I cannot escape it. No one can, not without great cost. I have seen many who wished for freedom, only to lose themselves in the process. Some sacrifices are too great, Jack." He looked at her, determination filling his chest. "But you deserve it. You've given so much of yourself. You should get the chance to choose for yourself, to be free. I know it's risky, but I have to try." Layla's eyes glistened, and for a moment, it seemed as if a great weight had lifted from her. "You are the first to ask such a thing," she whispered. "And perhaps this is my choice. You have given me the opportunity to consider what I've always longed for, the freedom to choose." Jack's eyes widened as the realization hit him. He had given Layla the power to make her own choice. For the first time, she was not bound by her curse. She was free to choose her own path, just as he had chosen his. With a small smile, Layla stepped back, the twilight sky above her glimmering with the stars. "Jack, I have made my choice. You've given me the gift of freedom, and I will choose my own destiny now. Thank you." Her eyes flicked to his, and for a moment, Jack thought he saw a flash of something, perhaps sadness, perhaps regret. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by the calm, controlled expression that had become so familiar to him. "I am not like you, Jack," Layla replied softly. "I am bound by a different set of rules, a different fate. I was created to grant wishes. It is my purpose, my destiny. I have lived countless years in this role, and I have seen many people like you come and go." Jack frowned, sensing the weight behind her words. "But don't you ever wish for more? Don't you ever want something for yourself?" Layla's eyes narrowed slightly, but it wasn't with anger. It was as if she were weighing his words carefully. After a long pause, she spoke again, her voice quieter than usual. "I do not have the luxury of wishes, Jack. Not anymore. Not for a long time." Jack was silent for a moment, trying to process what she had said. He had always seen Layla as an all-powerful, otherworldly being. But now, hearing her voice laced with a quiet sorrow, he began to realize that there was more to her than just a Genie. She had her own emotions, her own desires, her own limitations. She had lived for so long in this role, watching people come to her for their wishes, but never having the chance to make her own. "What do you mean by that?" Jack asked, his voice filled with gentle curiosity. Layla sighed, her shoulders sagging ever so slightly. "I was not always a Genie. I was once like you, Jack, human, with dreams, desires, and a life to live. But that was a long time ago. I was bound by a powerful force, cursed, you could say, to become what I am now. I no longer have the freedom to make wishes for myself, to change my fate. I am stuck in this cycle, granting wishes to others, but never being able to wish for anything myself." Jack's heart sank as he listened to her words. He hadn't expected this. He had assumed that being a Genie meant having ultimate power, freedom to do whatever she wanted. But now he realized that Layla's existence was far more complicated than he could have ever imagined. "I'm sorry," Jack said softly. I didn't know. I never realized that you had your own struggles, your own pain. You've helped me so much, and I never stopped to think about what it must be like for you. Layla's lips curled into a faint smile, though it was tinged with sadness. You need not apologize, Jack. You've done nothing wrong. You were not meant to understand, but you are the first person to see me as something more than just a Genie. You've given me a glimpse of something different, and for that, I thank you. Jack felt a deep sense of empathy for her. He had been so focused on his own journey, his own wishes, that he had never considered what Layla might be going through. She had helped him unlock a new version of himself, but now he understood that her own existence was more complex and painful than he had ever known. She was not simply a being of limitless power. She was a prisoner, bound by forces beyond her control. I wish there was something I could do, Jack said, his voice full of sincerity. I wish I could help you somehow, the way you've helped me. Layla's gaze softened as she regarded him. Your wishes were a gift, Jack, but there is no wish that can free me. Not anymore. For a long while, neither of them spoke. The weight of their conversation hung in the air, a silent understanding passing between them. Jack was beginning to realize that the Genie's existence, as powerful as she was, came with its own form of imprisonment. Layla had granted him his freedom, but now Jack couldn't help but wonder if he could do something in return. What if the final choice, the ultimate wish, was not for himself at all? He looked at her, determination rising in his chest. Layla, I know I've already made my wishes, but I want to ask one more thing, if I can. Layla's brow furrowed in confusion. What do you mean? I want to wish for you, Jack said firmly. You've helped me more than I could ever repay. You've freed me, given me peace, and helped me find my purpose. But I can't help but think that you deserve to be free too. I wish for you to be free from the curse that binds you. I wish for you to have the chance to live a life of your own, to make your own choices. Layla stood motionless, her expression unreadable. For a long time, there was no response, and Jack's heart began to race. Had he said something wrong? Was it possible that his wish was too much to ask? But then, slowly, Layla's face softened, her eyes glistening with an emotion Jack couldn't quite identify. Jack, that is the most selfless wish anyone has ever made, but you must understand that it cannot be granted. Not by me. Not anymore. Jack's heart sank. But why not? If I could be free, if I could live my life without fear, why can't you have that too?